If you walked into a modern hospital right now,
Hmm.
you would see machines that can, like, literally map the electrical firing of a single human thought.
Oh, yeah. It is wild.
It really is. I mean, we can peer inside a living brain in real time in high definition. It just feels like the absolute pinnacle of human achievement.
It truly is a level of biological mastery that, well, it would look like pure magic to anyone living just a century or two ago.
Right. Magic.
Yeah. We've mastered the visible, measurable aspects of our physical reality to just an astonishing degree.
We have. And, it is incredibly comforting to know the capability exists out there. But today we have this massive stack of philosophical essays, some neuroscience research, and historical analyses.
A really dense stack of reading this time around.
Seriously dense. And our mission in this deep dive is to answer one profoundly disruptive question based on these texts, which is, are we truly more advanced than our ancestors?
Which is a heavy question.
It's so heavy. Because, you walk out of that same modern hospital,
Right.
and you pull out this glowing rectangular supercomputer from your pocket, and you immediately read about a war breaking out over a border dispute that has been going on for like 1,000 years.
Exactly.
And suddenly, that feeling of being at the pinnacle of achievement completely evaporates.
It really does. It's the ultimate cognitive dissonance of modern life. I mean, we have the technology of gods, but the disputes of ancient tribes.
Yes, the disputes of ancient tribes, exactly.
And it forces us to step back and examine the water we're swimming in, Usually when we measure how advanced we are, we just look at the gadgets. We measure the tools, but we rarely measure the hands wielding them.
Which is why, for anyone listening right now who wants to be truly well-informed, it's just not enough to keep a tally of what new technology exists.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have smartphones that can access more information in 3 minutes than a historical scholar could gather in their entire lifetime.
Their whole life, yeah. Right. But possessing more knowledge or having, faster Wi-Fi, it doesn't automatically make us more advanced as a species.
Right.
We really need to question the very metrics we use to define progress.
We do. And to do that effectively, we have to figure out what an advanced society actually looks like in practice. Because the philosophers we're looking at today, they introduced this brilliant thought experiment to kind of isolate the variables here.
I love this part.
It's great, right? It's basically a comparison between two hypothetical civilizations.
Let's lay this out because it completely flips your perspective.
Yeah.
So imagine Civilization A. This place has astonishing technology.
Like beyond anything we have now.
Way beyond. We are talking artificial intelligence that optimizes entire energy grids, genetic engineering that completely eradicates hereditary diseases, regular space travel.
Quantum computing, the works.
Exactly, the works. On paper, it is a perfect sci-fi utopia. But here's the catch. The people living in Civilization A suffer from sky-high... deep social division.
So you basically have a society with immensely high capacity, but virtually zero social cohesion.
Yes. And then you contrast that with Civilization B. Now, their tech is primitive by comparison. Maybe they don't even have widespread electricity, let alone space travel.
Right. Very basic.
Very basic. But the people feature high cooperation. They trust one another. They resolve their conflicts peacefully. They fiercely protect their environment. And they make all their decisions based on the well-being of future generations.
Which is such a stark contrast.
It is. So if you had to choose which civilization is actually more advanced, it creates this real tension.
What's fascinating here is how it completely dismantles our default bias toward technological supremacy. I mean, technology expands what a civilization can do, but character dictates what it chooses to do.
Exactly.
Knowledge equates to power, sure, but wisdom gives that power direction. A society focusing solely on inventions while ignoring the cultivation of character is, well, it's fundamentally dangerous, because they're constantly increasing the blast radius of their own flaws.
Oh, the blast radius of their flaws.
Yeah.
That is such a good way to put it. It's like handing the keys to a ridiculously fast sports car. We're talking an engine with 1,000 horsepower to someone who hasn't even learned the rules of the road.
Right, they have no idea how to drive.
Right. We celebrate the horsepower. We throw parades for the engine designers. But if the driver doesn't have the character and the maturity to handle that speed, a crash isn't just possible. It's inevitable.
Yeah, the capability actually becomes the threat.
It really does. But that tension brings up an uncomfortable reality, doesn't it? If character and wisdom are so incredibly crucial to surviving our own horsepower, why do we constantly obsess over the newest technological gadget instead?
That is the million-dollar question.
Like, why are we biologically driven to wait in a huge line for the next phone release instead of, I don't know, demanding breakthroughs in conflict resolution or social equity?
Well, looking at the neuroscience research in our stack, this really comes down to how our brains are wired to process novelty versus actual growth. There's this concept of hedonic adaptation.
Hedonic adaptation.
Yeah,
Okay.
which is essentially a treadmill. When you get a new piece of technology like a faster phone, a more immersive screen, your brain gets a surge of dopamine.
And it feels great.
It feels amazing, and we misinterpret that biological hit as a massive leap forward. But very quickly, your brain adapts to that new baseline. The treadmill speeds up, essentially.
So the novelty wears off.
Exactly. The novelty wears off, the dopamine drops, and you need the next new thing just to feel that same sense of momentum.
Wow. So we are biologically wired to chase the new, but we confuse motion with direction.
That's a perfect way to say it. Now, contrast that cheap dopamine hit with how the prefrontal cortex operates. This is the part of the brain sitting right behind your forehead.
The character center, basically.
Yes, it's the seat of moral judgment, empathy, impulse control, complex decision-making. And the crucial detail from the research here is neuroplasticity. The prefrontal cortex does not develop through passive consumption.
Right, you can't just binge watch a show to grow it.
No, not at all. It requires friction. Building neural pathways for empathy and self-regulation is physically demanding for the brain. It requires socialization, discipline, experiencing uncomfortable consequences, and just intentional effort.
So you're saying that while the dopamine pathway for tech is pre-wired and instant, the neural pathways for character have to be painstakingly built, almost like tearing and repairing muscle tissue at the gym.
That's a great analogy. Dopamine is cheap and fast. Character requires the slow metabolic work of building synaptic connections. It does not upgrade just because you bought a faster computer or, got a chip implanted.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because I want to play devil's advocate for a second on behalf of anyone listening.
Okay, go for it.
But wait, doesn't all this modern tech help us practice morality? I mean, we are connected to people across the globe. We are exposed to diverse ideas. You can literally donate to a cause on the other side of the planet with a thumbprint. It feels like tech facilitates moral practice.
It's a fair point, it really is. But we have to distinguish between expanding our reach and fundamentally transforming our nature.
Okay, explain that.
Well, technology extends your reach, absolutely. You can project your intentions further and faster than ever before, but it doesn't change the underlying hardware of human nature. This brings up the blank slate theory that's mentioned in the text regarding character.
Right, the idea that moral advancement doesn't transfer biologically.
Exactly. You don't pass down moral enlightenment through DNA. A baby born today in a modern hospital with quantum computers down the hall is just as unsocialized, just as prone to selfishness, anger, and tribalism as a baby born 10,000 years ago in a cave.
That is just wild to think about. Our technological hardware stacks exponentially with every generation, right? Like, we don't have to reinvent the wheel or the microchip. We just build on the blueprints of our ancestors.
We get a huge head start.
Right, a massive head start.
Yeah.
But our moral software resets to zero every single time a child is born. Character must be actively cultivated from scratch, generation after generation.
Which really highlights the striking paradox of our time. We have the capability to build rockets that navigate the vacuum of space, yet we still struggle with something as primal as, controlling our own anger in traffic.
It's so true.
We subconsciously assume the tech automatically upgrades our moral hardware along with it, but the biology simply doesn't support that.
So, if our moral hardware resets at zero with every generation, but our technological hardware stacks exponentially, looking back at history must look like watching a toddler play with increasingly dangerous matches.
That's exactly what it looks like.
It's a dynamic that has played out tragically over and over again, hasn't it? Every major technological leap simply amplifies our existing nature, both our brilliant capacity for good and our deepest, most destructive flaws.
It is the ultimate double-edged sword. Let's look at the historical analyses from the source text. Take a breakthrough like the Haber-Bosch process in the early 20th century.
Well, this is a great example.
Yeah. This was the discovery of how to synthesize ammonia from the air, which basically allowed for mass-produced fertilizer. It literally saved billions of people from starvation.
Billions.
Yeah, it's arguably the most life-saving technological leap in human history.
But, and this is the dark side of that same coin, the exact same scientific principles developed by the exact same people, were simultaneously used to create chemical weapons. And the explosives that fueled the unprecedented slaughter of World War I.
Precisely.
The capacity expanded massively, but the character of the institutions wielding that power decided to use it for industrial-scale destruction.
And we see this mirrored perfectly in modern communication technology today. I mean, the infrastructure we've built connects billions of people. We have democratized access to information.
The entire world's knowledge at our fingertips.
Right. But because that technology interacts with human brains that are still biologically wired for tribalism and outrage, that exact same infrastructure accelerates the spread of fear, hatred, and algorithmic radicalization.
We feel this tension every single day.
Yeah.
I mean, every time you scroll through a newsfeed, you are witnessing this clash in real time.
Oh, absolutely.
You see a brilliant piece of human connectivity, maybe a community rallying to crowdfund a life-saving surgery for a total stranger, and literally one post below it, you see an algorithmically fueled argument creating deep, volatile social division. The tool doesn't care. It just amplifies whatever we feed it.
Which forces a massive reevaluation of how we measure society's success. If we connect this to the bigger picture, if the tools can be used for either curing diseases or leveling cities, then the presence of the tools themselves cannot be the metric of a thriving civilization.
It just can't.
No. We have to weigh our traditional metrics against deeper qualitative ones.
And we're so reliant on things like gross domestic product, right?
Yeah.
We just assume that if the GDP is going up, the society is advancing. But we all know GDP is deeply flawed.
Very flawed.
It measures economic output, sure. But it doesn't measure happiness or security or the distribution of wealth. Like, an oil spill actually increases GDP because of the money spent cleaning it up.
Exactly. We cling to metrics like GDP and technological output because they're easily quantifiable. They satisfy that dopamine-driven desire for clear, upward trending numbers.
We love a good chart going up.
We do. But it's much harder to measure the depth of a society's thinking or the actual quality of life for ordinary people. We boast about the height of our buildings, but what about the depth of our thinking? We measure military strength, but what about our ability to resolve disagreements without firing a shot?
Right.
We measure progress by pure consumption and extraction, but what about the wise, sustainable use of resources? Every new breakthrough asks us a question. Will this serve life or just strengthen our existing weaknesses?
That is a heavy filter to put on, say, the development of artificial general intelligence right now.
Oh, completely.
We are so heavily focused on whether we can build it, and we're pouring billions into the capacity side of things while largely neglecting the prefrontal cortex work, basically, of asking how we should integrate it into a fragile human society.
And that neglect is precisely what makes modern civilization so brittle. When you optimize exclusively for capacity and speed, you sacrifice resilience. To build a society that doesn't just survive its own technology but actually thrives, we need a fundamental paradigm shift in how we view civilization itself.
And the texts we're exploring today argue that we need to stop viewing civilization as a machine and start viewing it as a living ecosystem. Because the machine metaphor is how we usually operate, isn't it?
It is.
If a machine is slow, you upgrade a part, you put a faster processor in it, and boom, the machine runs faster. It's a very linear, isolated fix.
But an ecosystem operates on an intricate web of dependencies. You can't just maximize one variable in an ecosystem without cascading effects.
Right, it doesn't work like that.
No. If you introduce a hyper-efficient predator into a forest, it might look like a biological upgrade at first, but it eventually starves because it collapses the entire food web.
So what does this all mean? It's like tending a massive garden, right? You can't just dump high-tech fertilizer on one single plant and completely ignore the soil quality, the water table, and the weeds.
Exactly.
If a generation focuses only on tech acceleration, dumping all that high-tech fertilizer, and completely ignores moral cultivation, you get a garden that is wildly overgrown but fundamentally unstable. Eventually, the whole system suffocates on its own imbalance.
The ecosystem model demands profound balance. Scientific excellence must exist alongside ethical responsibility. Economic vitality has to be balanced with environmental stewardship and mental well-being, justice, freedom, curiosity, and compassion.
That's a long list of things to balance.
It is, but there's a cyclical nature to this ecosystem described in the text that is really vital to understand.
Well, let's track that cycle, because this is where the societal neuroplasticity comes in. It all starts with education, right?
Yes. The educational environment influences how a generation thinks and what they value. Do they value wisdom or just raw intelligence? That thinking then shapes the daily decisions they make.
Okay, education influences thinking. Thinking shapes decisions.
Right. And over time, those collective decisions solidify into institutions, our laws, our governments, our corporate structures.
And then those institutions dictate the reality of the society at large. They set the incentive structures.
Exactly.
If you have institutions built on short-term extraction, you get a society that burns out. And that society, in turn, creates the environment and the funding that influences the next generation's education. The cycle just locks in.
So if you inject a lack of character into the decisions phase of that cycle, it metastasizes. It infects the institutions, which poisons the society, which breaks the educational framework for the next generation, making them even less equipped to handle the compounding technology they're going to inherit.
Wow. Which brings us to the role of history. Because the texts emphasize that our ancestors are not just primitive people we've somehow evolved past. They are our classroom.
They absolutely are.
They didn't have smartphones, sure, but they had the exact same limbic systems and prefrontal cortexes that we do. They wrestled with the exact same human nature.
And a civilization that ignores the past is doomed to repeat its cyclical failures, just with more destructive tools each time around. But one that studies history can transcend those cycles. True advancement means combining the hard-won moral wisdom of yesterday with the scientific discoveries of today.
Just beautiful.
Because only then do we become worthy of tomorrow.
Worthy of tomorrow.
Okay.
That completely redefines the standard of success. As we pull all these threads together, I want to distill this ultimate definition of being advanced from the source material. It flips everything we are taught by modern culture on its head. Being advanced isn't about possessing the most powerful tools. It is about using whatever tools we currently have with wisdom, compassion, and foresight.
It is a fundamental shift from measuring capability to measuring maturity. Capability is a measure of what we can control outside of ourselves.
Yeah.
Maturity is a measure of what we can control within ourselves.
I want you to really reflect on your own personal metrics for progress. When you look at your own life, your career trajectory, your community, and the world around you, are you measuring success by the accumulation of inventions, efficiency, and raw information? Or are you measuring it by the cultivation of your character, the depth of your relationships, and your ability to navigate conflict with empathy?
It's a really vital question to sit with. And as we conclude, there's one final provocative thought that builds on this idea of progress and future generations. We often judge societies by the quality of life they provide for their current citizens.
Right, the present-day metrics.
But let's take that one step further. What if the ultimate test of an advanced civilization isn't how it treats its citizens today, but whether it is willing to intentionally design and sacrifice for a world inhabited by generations it will never even meet?
Oh, wow. A society planting trees under whose shade they know they will never sit.
Exactly that. I mean, think about it. If time travelers from 1,000 years in the future looked back at us right now, analyzing the full spectrum of our scientific capacity juxtaposed with our social character, would they see an advanced society that finally learned how to grow up and build a lasting ecosystem? Or would they just see primitive, reactionary ancestors who happen to have really, really smartphones?
That is a haunting perspective to leave on. It brings us right back to that hospital room we started in. We have the machines that can map the human brain. We can edit our own genetic code. We carry supercomputers in our pockets. But all of that horsepower means absolutely nothing if we can't figure out how to use it to build a world where people actually trust each other. The gadgets might be incredibly advanced, but the choice of who we become is entirely up to us.